So without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce you to my friend Herb, who probably most of you know anyway, and find out more about WILMa. So Herb, all yours.
Hello. Thank you so much. Now let me see. Ooh, yeah. Who remembers this here cartoon? Can you remember the year it came from? Have a look at that one. Yeah, you look like a COBOL programmer.
We can still, we can only see you at the moment still.
Oh,
Herb.
really? Whoops. Okay. Good. Technical hitch. Let me go again. Right. And we're live. So, who remembers this here cartoon from back in the day? Clue is it talks about the millennium, a pivotal point in mainframe recruitment. I think some of you remember. Fast forward to this summer. Who could have imagined that we are looking at the barrel of pretty much the same thing? People scrabbling around trying to find people with mainframe skills. How could it come to this? Well, I think a lot of us on the call have some first-hand if you do not know me. My name is Herb, and I'm an academic at the University of Wolverhampton. I haven't been working there since the building was new, like in that picture there, but sometimes it feels like it. I have knocked around different mainframe events for I don't know, close to 10 years now. So a lot of my ideas are kind of based on the experiences that I've had and the conversations I've had at all these good places. You may remember, I think this was 2013, I did a talk on reframing the mainframe at GSE. And this summer, I did a talk called We Need to Talk About Mainframe Recruitment Urgently. So this has been something that's on my mind for a while, and this is kind of the genesis of the project I want to talk about today. So my interests in no particular order are information systems, so kind of how people and technology interact, software engineering, kind of how we make stuff that gets things done, and most importantly, new talent on the platform and sustainable modernization, because I think the two go together. I have been sometime godfather to my own local student society, the Wolverhampton Mass, and so a lot of my thoughts and ideas are based on the things that I've seen and heard working with these guys. Universities and mainframes, how do the two go together? We had a great talk from a guy called Philip Brunner early in the week, musing on just that. What is the role of universities in kind of moving mainframes forward? So my take on this has been, well, we can definitely listen to what you have to say, because that's something that we're good for, right? We can shut up and we can go, okay, so tell me what's going on. We can have a good think for you and kind of independently kind of consider what seems to be happening, because we talk to multiple people, and you never know, we may even have a good idea. We may have something to contribute that will help support you and move you all forward. So this is my position, if you like, that I'm hoping to hear a lot from the community that we can consider and maybe kind of add something useful to your conversation. So we have issues around sustainability, and I've noticed over kind of the years, you can almost kind of segment the stages that mainframers go through as they enter the platform. Now, there are a wonderful number at this top end here with 15 years plus experience. But we sometimes have issues losing people at these early phases and also somewhere along the line. Here a bit less so. Usually if you make it to 5 years, you're probably going to make it closer to the 15. So I've been interested in how we keep more people on at these early phases, and this is a result of kind of my first experiences of inviting people on the platform and seeing kind of why they stay and why they leave. From about 2016 onwards, it has been very encouraging to see a lot of initiatives going around, bringing a lot of new people into play and onto the platform. Lots of different companies have had kind of initiatives to kind of get people engaged, and I really hope that continues. I'm very keen that we keep people on for this period, because this is where our long-termers are going to come from. So kind of cultivating this gap, this is what's going to give us our long-term success and our people with their deep knowledge. So I'm going to say a little bit about the themes that you might have seen around mainframe recruitment, and some of them will be familiar to you, I think. So back in the 90s, we have what I call retreat and repair. So everyone was talking about client server. We have that famous quotation about the last mainframe being unplugged in 1996, and the gent who made that comment later eating his words in a picture, quite literally. And towards the end of the 90s, we got a new injection of people, what we call the bug babies. So people who are on to fix the millennium bug, they trained up, and then a lot of them stayed, and a lot of them have kind of thrived on the platform. Then in the 2000s, we had this whole thing about offshore and offshoring things, migrating, and we got into remote working a lot. So we had kind of improved connectivity, and we had more remote teams, and so we did a fair bit of recruitment, but it wasn't necessarily local, and there were some new kind of management practices that we had to bring in to make that work. The 2010s were in many ways the era of austerity and lean, and the whole kind of more with less. But what sort of happened to the end was that a lot of the operations that had gone away started to come back. A great deal of the uncertainty that we had about the future of the platform abated. And a lot of that was due to mobile traffic, it was due to online payments, and it was due to the prevalence of the cloud. And so we actually started to integrate local hiring with some of that kind of offshore model that we'd had before. So this coming period, we aren't quite sure what we're going to see. It's going to be very interesting. But one thing for certain is that there are a lot of people with a stake in bringing newcomers to the platform, and we've seen a lot of initiatives. We've heard about them in this stream, and over the past kind of 3 years or so, I think I've seen more than when I started by a step change. One of the really interesting ones that I think is going to have a very big impact going forward. Project Zoe, as part of the Open Mainframe project, is a bid to change some of the standard tooling that people are used to on the platform. And some of the conversations I've had about it, people have said, well, look, if you expect to get kind of modern people and modern practitioners on the platform, well, you're going to have modern tools. Otherwise, how do we attract them? There's always going to be this this barrier. Now, it's interesting to look at it and say, okay, if you want to change the mindset, change the tools. I would say as well, look at the person, look at what motivates them, and see if you can't find an interesting kind of middle path to help bring and keep them on the platform, supported by new tools, but not necessarily just because of them. So why has bringing people on the platform been a bit of a struggle in the past? Well, I think most of us on this call are pretty well aware, and so the kind of the top three are there in red for you. Yeah, so it's people actually wanting to do it. It's the notion that people on the platform is some kind of an expense, and we have this characteristic kind of risk aversion. Now, if we want to deal with the first two, there's a book I recommend for you, or just to show to anyone who believes that, because up in the C-suite, those are the conversations that you'll have. It's really not what you think. Have a look at that book and see why we're in the situation that we're in, and you know, there are strategies to get out of it. On the last one, essentially, a lot of people are playing chicken, right? Everyone's going, oh, but it's a risk if we hire people. Yeah, but it's a risk if you don't. And it does feel like we've now got to the point where people are actually saying, okay, you know, it's the bigger risk is not having a sufficiently full skills base. So let's start to do something smart about it. Now, the secondary challenges that we have in recruitment are around the choice of candidates that we have, and the candidates' choices, because often it's easy to forget the candidates have as much choice to apply for a mainframe role as we do to try and recruit them. So my position and this project has been looking at those two things. So looking into the choice of candidates that we have, and how we can help those candidates make the best choices possible. A lot of this has come as a result of looking at successes and failures over the years. Now, to a lot of proud mainframers, failures are never to be mentioned, particularly around hiring. It's very, well, I know it can be a sore point where we kind of flick through the occasions where things haven't gone quite right, but I think it's really essential in order to avoid making the same mistakes, and hopefully we can learn from what's happened, and kind of come up with ways of solving problems that kind of get around the problems that we've had in the past. There is a proposition that people who like mainframes and people who like other kinds of tech perhaps differ in some ways in terms of their motivations. Now, once upon a time, I posited creating a whole apprenticeship around the idea that mainframe people have a slightly different skill set, and there are slightly different features that kind of go with the job. In many ways, the jury's out, but it's something that anecdotally people seem to bear up. Now, this might not be this might be symptomatic of the type of organizations that use mainframes. This might be something to do with the nature of the technologies and the people that are drawn for them. But it's an interesting hypothesis to kind of kick about, because maybe that would help explain how we can kind of fit people to the areas that kind of suits them best. And so, Project WILMa, short for Will I Like Mainframe. So the idea is there are things about the platform which may attract you and which may repel you, and as you're coming into its orbit, as you're coming into contact with mainframes and mainframers, it's probably good just to have a think, just to have a little audit and go, okay, is this something that would suit me? Typically, a lot of mainframe shops recruit people in huge batches, and then they kind of pick a few for the batch and they pull them in the mainframe direction. A lot of people that I've met and that I've worked with will tell you that they had no idea that they were going to be kind of put on the mainframe. They came in with their friend and they went left and the other one went right, and they ended up as mainframers. So this is a project to try and think a little bit about, I don't know, would you like mainframe? Is this something that would appeal to you? Now, I have heard it suggested that Project WILMa, and it's kind of a SERI acronym, was related to Wilma Flintstone, and I can categorically poo-poo that. Lovely though our Hanna-Barbera heroine is, the Stone Age is not the way for the mainframe, and so our WILMa is very much of the future. If anything, it is Colonel Wilma Deering, who, although dreamt up in 1929, was very much a citizen of the 25th century, and She has a long and proud tradition as an adventurous military heroine. Some of you may remember her incarnation in I think it was 1970s, 1980s Buck Rogers series. So yeah, that would be our WILMa. It's all about looking to the future. So in working on this, we've been listening to candidates, so people who are kind of leaning in mainframe direction but aren't necessarily sure. I've been talking to early career professionals, so people who have been lured onto the platform or who are kind of taking their first steps. I've been talking to hiring managers as well, so the people who have a stake in making sure that that the right people get on board, and that's really been the crux of it. It's been around listening to these different parties and seeing if there was anything that we could do to help them understand how they wanted to proceed, whether you know the mainframe kind of area or field or culture was something that would suit them. So we focus on saying, well, so what qualities make a potentially successful mainframer? I say potentially because nothing's for certain in this life, but you're just trying to maximize your probabilities. And how do you identify? How do you identify those kind of synergies that would kind of make it work? So the history of the project, version 0.1 was really just a collection of memories based on conversations that we'd had at various events. So some of those places that I was kind of traveling to or speaking, it would always come up as a topic. You'd meet people who are recently on the platform, or having placed people on the platform and seen them leave. Having these conversations with no particular kind of methodology, there was an aim to kind of come up with some questions that could be posited at an early stage, just to see, you know, just to open the conversation about, you know, is this something that that you'd enjoy? So it was 100% not an aptitude test. So the idea was never to exclude anybody, or there was no pass fail as such. And it was never intended to have any science behind it. It was really just a kind of a way of making an opening to understand kind of people's opinions. So it was essentially 25 kind of multiple choice questions that you could kind of deploy quite quickly. And the questions, they kind of circled around things like your attitude to teamwork, your attention to detail, how you manage risk, your need for recognition, and yeah, going for the direct approach. Mainframes. How do you feel about mainframes? So I'll give you an example of how it worked. So we basically deployed this this questionnaire, and it had like a Likert scale. So you have some statements, and you can decide whether you strongly agree, neither agree nor disagree, disagree, or strongly disagree. And so you had statements like, legacy systems must be important to companies to keep them running. So you'd have a think about that, and you decide whether that was something that you agreed with or disagreed with, and how much. Another example would be, my experience with technology is rather limited. Now, talking to tech people at a tech conference, one might wonder, where's that one coming from? This is a result of talking to people on the platform and who are very happy, who before they got into mainframes had not had much tech in their background at all. But it does seem that a lot of the stronger candidates, a lot of the stayers, perhaps have that kind of profile, or maybe it's an indication that they're kind of fairly modest. They understand how much they don't know. So that's a question that kind of a good start for some debate. I enjoy investigating systems to understand how they work. Yeah, you can see where that might come in. Providing support to others demonstrates the importance of my role. Before taking technical decisions, I always evaluate risks. And I'm able to solve problems well in emergency situations. So these are just a few examples of the types of things that that you were asked on WILMa 0.1, and just for the sake of decoding them, we'll just look at kind of what they're getting at, and some may be more obvious than others. So the first one is really about, do you understand why legacy systems are actually there? Because if you are the type of person who can see clearly, the fact that kind of something's labeled a legacy system means it's to some extent inconvenient, but at the same time, it can't be that inconvenient, otherwise it simply wouldn't be there. So it's kind of a, can you see the logic? If these things weren't so essential, then why would they still be there? So if you can see the purpose of what you're doing, often that means, well, that might be a good way for you to go. The second one, as I said, can sometimes determine whether you are particularly invested in one kind of technology or another. And some of my experiences of people not taking to the platform, often it was they were technically very strong people, but moving to the mainframe platform, they felt like they had a lot to lose. So their dominance, their primacy in another technology put them on this platform, and they were just like anybody else starting from the beginning. So sometimes less is more in terms of what they know when they begin. The third one there about investigation, it just to kind of bring out your curiosity, right? Do you want to know how things work? Do you like to look under the covers? Do you like solving a mystery? And though that's not something baked into all mainframe jobs, generally there needs to be a level of understanding of things that aren't necessarily obvious. So if you enjoy that, if you can put up with that, then perhaps platform might be for you. I'll quickly dance through some of the others. Number 4 is interesting. So in a way, it's kind of about service, and the mainframe is often the service backbone of some big players. So it's not kind of center stage and kind of getting the plaudits and the glamour, but it is the thing that does all the heavy lifting. Now that bothers some people, and if it doesn't bother you particularly, and all the other stars align, then maybe you could have a big impact on the platform. Risk is an obvious one, although we'll kind of come back to that as a subject. And working under pressure, that stands to reason, as all of you could probably recount. There are some days on the platform where everything's at stake, and it's good to talk about that. It's good for somebody to understand at the beginning that this is where you could be. That those kinds of exciting days happen. So the aim of kind of WILMa 0.1, as I say, was not to exclude people. It was literally to start some conversations and to have both the interviewer and the interviewee asking why. Why did you ask that? And why did you answer that? And so you could have better conversations at an early stage, and you'd both walk away with a confidence that you made the right decision, either yes or no. So some of you might know this fellow, Peter Snow. Always did the elections and the swingometer, and always used to say, "Oh, it's just a bit of fun, just a bit of fun." And that was essentially WILMa 0.1. It was a fun way to start some conversations that might help everyone in the room make better decisions. So as far as it went, it was enjoyable enough. Now, not wanting to leave it there, so finding that kind of adequate, I started having a chat with a guy in our department of psychology, who is a specialist in job selection and industrial psychology. So I'd said to him, so I work with this tech community on a platform that has a very special role in industry. It kind of holds up whole sectors. They have had issues around kind of recruitment, and they're keen to have conversations about how to improve what happens there. So being an industrial psychologist, he introduced me to some of the theory behind job selection, and lo and behold, wouldn't you know it, this is something that people have been working on for quite some time. So my kind of very informal kind of dash at coming up with some questions to determine whether somebody would enjoy working on the mainframe, apparently had a much more serious analog. And there are measures, and there are kind of particular vocabulary for identifying features and personality types and characteristics, and moreover there are methodologically sound ways of apparently collecting this. So this is what I learnt talking to Danny. So he introduced me to the Occupational Information Network, and this is kind of a catalogue of job families and descriptions, and they capture a variety of requirements or kind of characteristics that match people to particular roles. So let me show you. So if you have a look on their online site, different families are kind of categorized, and within each family you'll get a number of different roles. So for example, if you look inside computer and mathematical, which is probably the closest for most of us, you'll see the range of things that they have in there. You have programmers, you have data warehousing specialists, you have database administrators, you have database architects, and within each of those, so this is an example for computer programmers, they will do some mapping on things like the skills and abilities, things like the activities and the knowledge that you need to have. And it's actually quite a detailed profile that they have for a particular role, and within a job family there can be hundreds of roles. Now, of course, you do see a fair bit of overlap. So, for example, you can see some of the job titles that might be associated with that role, programmer, and you're expecting at least a large amount of overlap between those roles that have slightly different names. One of the interesting things that we kind of focused on as we started looking through these, so standard computer programmers, we have this discussion of skills, but also things like work styles. So what are the things that you need day to day, you need to feel going on around you in order to work happily. And if you have a look at the site, so each one of these, they will actually break it down so you can have a look in detail at what they actually mean in each case. It mentions things like you like to be you like to do some research, you like to investigate, you like kind of recognition for your achievements and things like that, and it goes into some levels of detail that give you a bit of insight as to how it might work if you were in one of those roles, or it helps you understand how, in the cases where things don't work out, what some of the issues might have been. So, having had this chat with Danny, we decided that we were going to try and overhaul WILMa and see if we could generate some role features based on the type of things that happen in a mainframe context. So this wasn't on the assumption that mainframers are very different. We based them on the existing roles that were there, but looking across the piece and thinking about the people that I was placing or I was seeing being placed, we thought about it from 4 points of view. So first we have the common features that you see in successful people on the platform. So we thought, well, that it would be interesting to try and tease those out to see what are the things that successful people have in common. And then working with some of the classifications that IBM has, we split this off into three distinct roles, three distinct kind of patterns of doing things. So we talked about developers. So this would be kind of application developers as much as anything. So people who are, kind of regularly contributing or kind of shaping new services. We looked at infrastructure mainframers. So this might well be systems programmers. So people who were focused on keeping the infrastructure running well and planning kind of future changes, and often kind of involved if there were kind of emergencies. And we also looked at consultants, so often people who were providing services directly. So often people who might be parachuted in to teams and have to very quickly pick up on what was happening, figure out who are the key people that they need to talk to, and since they're there for a short time, kind of manage that kind of day-to-day moving between projects type of mindset. And it was we kind of chimed with the kind of the IBM classifications that there were sufficient differences between these kinds of roles that when we actually looked into them, we might want to ask about them separately. So the project has involved trying to collect examples of behavior, and this is how the ONET specifications were built, essentially. So talking to experienced people, we were working with managers who had a minimum of 5 years experience, and we had a set of structured questions which we had to get approved through our ethics committee, and that took ages, that we used to try and tease out observations from the managers of what different people did and what made somebody effective in a particular role. Now, of course, not all managers deal with all kinds of mainframers, and so we've been trying to kind of balance what we kind of who we talk to. We can always contribute to the kind of the notion of kind of common features, but for particular branches, obviously you need to talk to somebody who's experienced or a specialist in that field. But you can see the example of the type of thing that we'd ask. We'd be recording these interviews. They take between an hour and a half and 2 hours, and we try to get as many examples as the participants can come up with of behaviors that are interesting and useful to the study that we could gather. So we are really at the beginning of this. So Danny and I had this conversation back in March, and then came the lockdown, and he just had a baby. So we've been taking it slow in a lot of ways, but my observation has been that as we've gone slower, we've actually been able to drill down into a lot more detail. So Paul has been helping out a lot on these interview sessions, and you can see that actually, whereas originally we said, well, it'd be great to kind of get a result kind of really quickly, actually talking to more people in depth and sometimes kind of following up with them can actually give you a much better quality of insight and results. So thus far, we've made a number of observations, into double figures now, but our target is quite a bit more. So as I say, we're really at the foothills. A few things I'd say that I was going to say that we've discovered, but in many ways it seems to have been reconfirmed, is that all the hiring managers seem to feel that mainframing is a team game, and it's a very specific type of a team game. And we've talked about it as mainframe mountaineering. So mountaineers are taking big risks, but at the same time, they're very risk averse. They're very focused on safety, and they know how much they depend on each other in order to A, get where they're going, and B, stay alive. And that seems to be something that has come out a lot in the studies, that there's a particular type of teamwork that seems to go along well with the platform. We also, surprise, surprise, know that mainframers think they're a little bit special, and they often have a lot of independence. And talking to some of the managers, you can hear that sometimes it's great a little, and to make the best of a team of mainframers is certainly an art in itself. But based on the conversations that we've had, it's certainly possible to make the most of those talented people that you have. So as I say, early days, and one of the reasons that I'm presenting it now is because we need more participants. And think about yourself. Tell your friends. We'd love to book you for a session and to see if we can get some insights about mainframe teams and how they work. We are aware, as we're doing this, that careers do vary. So being a mainframer in one company is not exactly the same as being a mainframer in another, but we haven't kind of divided them based on your sector or the size of your company or anything like that. So that's a dimension that we haven't really explored. I mean, sometimes I have conversations with people from some companies, and they say, "Oh, mainframe people, there's loads of them. We hired 10 last week." I'd say, "Yeah, but then you're a very special kind of company, so I'm not surprised." So we realize that the field is somewhat heterogeneous. Another thing that we think of, does that there? We're keen that people ask themselves the question: so it's you know, for now we're talking to hiring managers, but in the future we want to integrate that with some ideas from candidates and early career people as to you know, do you feel you belong here? What about it kind of suits you? Because we're very aware that in looking for the next generation of people, we don't necessarily want to define them and constrain them by the generation who are on the platform now and who are doing well, because as we know, the world changes, challenges change, and you know, the skill sets that we're looking for in order to be successful may also change. So that is plenty of me talking, and I'm sure my time is drawing near. I would love to engage anyone who feels they're qualified and have a session with them, kind of talking through their observations on mainframers and the recruitment and management thereof. I'll make some details available if anybody's interested. That is all I wanted to say today. I am open now for some questions, I think.
Yeah, you've got there's a few, actually, not so much questions, Herb, but a number of comments and points, certainly from Michael.
Love to hear them.
Do you want me to read them out to you, or shall I just unmute Michael?
Oh, go on, put Michael on.
Let's put him on the spot. Let me just find him.
Sorry,
you should be live now, Michael.
I'm real time with this stuff onto my mainframe class. As Herb knows, Herb and I know each other pretty well on this one. I have a lot of experience in this field of academia. I'm 20 years at it, 15 on mainframe. And absolutely nobody in our university knows about mainframe. I'm the only one that knows about mainframe because the jobs were offered to the other 60 lecturers in computing and nobody would touch it. So we have a massive marketing issue out there on mainframe at universities, and it should be from year one as well at universities. They clearly don't appreciate where the mainframe is out there, and it's through this GSE event that we can all see it, but we're not needing conversion. We're already there. It's the first years at universities do not know about mainframes, and by the time they hit fourth year, it's gone. They're off to the other sites and other IT opportunities. So marketing absolutely not being done effectively. Where are the Z champions in the local universities? I'm fine in our place, but I'm not even in computing. I'm in business studies. I'm completely in the wrong place. So figure that out. So there's a lot I can say about this, Herb, but I'd like others to come in on it. But I think I know what the problems are, and we're lucky in Ireland. We have an incentive from our government. They will pay they pay 90% of all the university costs to get new people onto computing courses, and me on mainframe. So my classes have maxed out because they're only paying 10% to get into my course, and the employers see that and they jump in and pay the 10%, and that retains them in their companies. So politically there's solutions to it, but that's at government level. But locally we can market it much better, and that needs to be looked at very seriously. But I'll come out on that one and let others come in, Herb, but those are some of my thoughts, as you know. So it's great hearing your lecture. I really enjoyed it a lot. Thank you, Herb.
Well, I thank you. Yeah, introducing people to it at the right point in time is definitely an important thing. I did actually consider including a quote from a student I had last year, and I had them all writing kind of blogs every week with another module, and I was reading his, and he said, "Oh, you know, this week I was introduced to the mainframe. I think it's the most incredible thing ever. You know, I'm definitely going to spend my time, you know, kind of getting to know it." And you know what, he really did. So yeah, you see some amazing things.
There's another question from Jamie as well, Herb. Jamie, you're unmuted if you want to ask.
Hi Herb, how are you doing?
Okay. Very well, thanks. Nice to see you.
Likewise. So yeah, there's a couple of points I want to raise, and actually what Michael said, just to kind of continue from that, that I did a lecture, I think it was about a couple of years ago, which was kind of a day in the life of the mainframe, and it was to a group of people that didn't know the mainframe. There were some students in there as well, and it was kind of like talking through how every day in your life, how you interact with the platform. And people found it fascinating, like from the time that you wake up and you go to the train station, all these kind of things, that somewhere along the line you're interacting with it. And I had some students come up to me and they were like, I'd love to work with this platform because, it's, at the end of the day, it's part of our backbone of our economy, our society. And I think we just have to do a much better job of promoting it, like in the education sector, getting around there, because, if people think that, they are contributing, in a way like to society and stuff. Also, let's not forget, people still love command line. They love, the people laugh at me and say teletext, era. It's
dark mode is a thing.
Absolutely. So I think there's a whole group of, the people are cut out of it. And the other thing that I was going to say was that the apprenticeship side. So there was a bank that I knew of that they did a little experiment with apprentices, and they hired an 18-year-old directly out of school, who just wanted to be given the opportunity, to get a foot on the ladder in technology. He found that he was introduced to the mainframe. I think it was a member of his family, found it fascinating. And I think 5 years on, he's absolutely flourishing. They put him through all the different teams. He started off in the RACF team, so he got that kind of first exposure to cybersecurity, and then he's moved through operations and so on. And I was very much like to companies like IBM, who were so transfixed at one point in taking on graduates. Mm-hmm. And no disrespects to graduates, everyone from an education, regardless of where they start, they all make a significant, contribution. But again, I still think that there is this whole sector of people that are cut out of it. That some people just want to, from a very early age, want to be given a chance. And I think, you see people flourish from an early start in life. So let's not forget them.
Oh no, and I think we all know lots of examples of those. I mean, I think this is kind of why it's good to have those conversations. So these the questions around WILMa aren't kind of gated on any particular qualification. No. It's really about how you feel about things and what you find attractive and what appeals to you. I mean, I think there's a role of advocacy, kind of speaking up for others and kind of helping people find the right thing that's for them. And that's completely kind of separate from what they've studied before. In fact, arguably, and this is kind of why I have this the question in there about how much experience do you have with technology? If you don't have a huge amount of experience, but you have a lot of enthusiasm and you kind of get focus on a particular thing, you'll be more than fine. You have nothing to lose by picking up mainframes. Whereas someone who kind of feels that they're an expert in something else maybe does.
Yeah. Just sorry, if I could just say one more thing, just to sort of add on to what Mike was saying. I think as well that, we should, and I don't know if this goes on, but, we should take this around schools as well, like particularly like the sixth form, sort of community. Because, that story that I told you about the day in the life of a mainframe and I think students, like 16, 17-year-olds will be absolutely fascinated by, this platform and what it's doing for them every day. So it's just a thought. If that doesn't happen, I think it's something that, that we should do. I think it get people quite excited about it and almost prep them for a career in the platform.
It's funny you should say that. This time last year, Paul and I were telling tales of the mainframe to school and college students from like kind of 14 to 18 and getting them to go through Master the Mainframe and kind of getting them to come up with their own information system. So yeah, it does happen, and yeah, I think it would be good to help it happen more, and that's definitely a thing. I mean, a way to kind of attract people is to give more people the opportunity to know about it.
Yeah, and the whole, as you said, the whole point of the Master Mainframe competition, which is live now and available for anybody from the age of 13 up. So we are sharing that with schools and colleges across the UK. So hopefully getting the message out to a far younger audience. We've also got another question from Marcus as well before we lose him, Herb, if that's okay. Marcus,
yeah.
you still there? Hang on, you're muted again, Marcus. Let me just.
Hi.
I hear you now.
Yeah, I just.
Hello.
Can you hear me now?
I can indeed.
Good. Thanks, Herb. That was really interesting and quite fun as well. I just want to concur with what Paul said in one of his comments earlier. Once you start talking to students about Z as a server, they're blown away. When I did computer science many years ago, we weren't taught about mainframes at all. And yet my first job as an industrial student in my year out was for a mainframe shop, and they taught me a 4GL and DBMSs and COBOL. And I went back to them after I finished college, and that's where I cut my teeth in the mainframe. But last year, I spoke at a Linux user group in Cardiff University, just talking about Linux on Z, and they had no idea of the capabilities of the Z15 and how popular mainframes were and how powerful, resilient, scalable, and available they were. And I think you're absolutely right that message needs to be told in order to bring new mainframe blood into the community.
Yeah, I mean, I always say it's the biggest platform you've never heard of.
Yeah.
But you've used.
Yeah, but you use it all the time. Yeah. I mean, it's a funny one. There's so much going on the platform, and there's so much happening, particularly at the moment with things like the Open Mainframe project. I mean, I say, look, there's never been a better time to get involved. And even if you do have some skills kind of with open systems, those would really be valued. So as the worlds converge and you're getting more hybrid cloud and all that kind of thing, having a foot in both camps is a really strong option for an interesting future career. And yeah, so sometimes just having the conversation, just putting it out there is what makes all the difference.
Fantastic. Conscious of time, are there any other questions from anybody? I'll just unmute all the lines just to finish off, just in case there's anybody else who wants to say anything. Everybody's now unmuted, so
okay, Paul, this is Michael here again. We have to work together, like other than the GSC event, which is the only time that I get a chance to talk to you people. That means I've got to wait for another year till we continue this conversation. I think that needs to be looked at, okay?
Yeah, definitely. And next time in person. I'm just sharing with you an Amabi, which is a Japanese, she's the equivalent of the rainbow, a 3-footed mermaid who ends epidemics. So I'll just share that with you and wish you all the best. So next time we can all meet in person. That'd be wonderful.
That would be good. Brilliant. So thank you all for your time. Thank you, Herb, particularly for taking us through that session. That was 6BB for those of you who are, I'm sure, very eager to go and give Herb some feedback on this session. And with that, just big thanks to Herb for that. And this session is now closed.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, guys. You've got about 20 minutes now before the next session's kick off.
It's time for a cup of tea.